Hello and welcome back to the No More Trauma podcast. I am your host, Tanya, trauma informed yoga teacher, trauma survivor, and mental health facilitator. The purpose of this podcast is to provide inspiration and healing and mental health tips to live a trauma free lifestyle, so post trauma. And so today's episode, I wanted to bring a bonus. As we know, this month is Mental Health Awareness Month. And I wanted to bring a very special episode, or session as I like to call them, to talk about. Today we'll actually be talking about anxiety disorders and how to reduce anxiety, what that looks like. So we'll talk about what it looks like in the body. We'll also talk about the anxiety disorders and what it looks like to reduce it, right? So what can we do to eliminate anxiety from showing up? Okay, so we can all recall a moment in our life, right? We can all recall a moment in our life or a time in our life when we were either paralyzed with fear or excessive worry. So that's what anxiety is, right? It's excessive or intense worry. The physical body can become paralyzed in that moment, right? So we're caught up in another moment, whether it be in the past or the future, but we're not in the present, right? It seems as if where we are right now is not happening. We're not completely in tune to what's happening. So we keep these thoughts on replay, right? Or the possible outcomes if we're thinking about the future moment. And we may experience, tummy upset, whether it's, butterflies, as some may call that, or feeling nauseous. We even may experience cold sweats, or our hands become clammy. Okay, so we can all think about a time where we experience that. Maybe in our adult life, or maybe, when we were younger. So according to National Alliance of Mental Illness, so NAMI, anxiety has impacted over 40 million adults in the U.S. That is a very large number. And most people will experience anxiety before the age 21. So really sit with that. That number, 40 million adults, right? And a good 7% of that, I believe I read, 7% of that is the age 3 years old, as young as 3 years old to 17. My goodness. It's a very, very young age to experience that sense of anxiety, And so, I want to take a pause here at any time, you need to, just check in with yourself, check in, with how you're feeling now, also grab some water. If you, at any moment just feel stimulated or activated by anything, you can, take a pause and just notice your breath. So even that check-in can also allow you to reduce those symptoms, the symptoms of anxiety and what that looks like. So let's talk about the anxiety disorders, right? Because we hear it, and so we don't know the severity. When someone is experiencing it, whether it's a relative or a friend. Even a stranger, if we see someone out, we don't know the severity, right? And so what are those? What are the anxiety disorders? So that way whether it's you're experiencing those, yourself, and you haven't had an opportunity or plan to have an opportunity to speak with a professional regards to your anxiety, maybe looking at, how often it's showing up for you. And so we look at the first one, and this was pulled from the National Institute of Mental Health, right? And so this is the generalized anxiety disorder, which is also called GAD. It's anxiety disorder characterized, and this is the chronic anxiety, which is exaggerated worry and tension, okay? And it's with little or nothing to provoke it. So maybe this may show up, maybe out of the blue. You may be moving throughout your day and just notice that you're experiencing it. Some, just tension. Maybe tension in the shoulders, the chest, the muscles. So that's the generalized anxiety disorder. And then we have the obsessive compulsive disorder, so what some may call OCD, right? And so that obsessive compulsive disorder can sometimes be coupled with another mental disorder, right? And so it's an anxiety disorder characterized by reoccurrence. So this is reoccurrent, right? So unwanted thoughts, so obsessions, right? And repetitive behaviors. So this is someone, you may think of like constant hand washing, or maybe pacing back and forth, maybe looping, taking circles in one particular space or a part of the home, or, whether outside. Or maybe scratching the head, scratching in one certain place, or pulling on the ear. So they're also classified as like rituals that may cause temporary relief. So maybe a child may be scratching at the ear, rubbing the eye, constantly rubbing the eye, looping that same thought, and just, seeing, allowing that action or that ritual to cause relief from the thought, okay? Or this can also be classy, so not just hand washing, but also looks like, cleaning. So it's, constantly cleaning, going back and forth, putting certain things in certain areas, maybe becoming forgetful and putting it back, and this is the obsessive compulsive disorder, or OCD. And so the next one, the third anxiety disorder, is the panic disorder. Okay, a lot of questions are, how do I know if I'm having an anxiety attack versus a panic attack? And so the panic disorder it is an anxiety disorder, and it's characterized by unexpected or repeated episodes of intense fear, accompanied with physical symptoms that can heart palpitations, shortness of breath, getting dizzy, abdominal distress. So this can be, really, really heightened. And I'll talk about the three physical body pillars, the biology of the body and what happens. So I'll go over that in just a bit. And then we have PTSD, right? So the post-traumatic stress disorder. And so this is a type of anxiety disorder that can be developed after exposure to a terrifying event, okay? So, we know war, acts of violence, that PTSD, can definitely, come up. Hearing loud sounds, being triggered by an image, activated by an image. This type of anxiety can show up. So physical harm. So when the body is physically harmed, threatened, that arousal period. And so the body moves through this heightened stress, okay? When the body feels threatened or life feels in danger, this can be developed. Okay, so traumatic events that may trigger PTSD includes violent personal assaults, right? So even natural disasters, so experiencing, hurricanes, earthquakes, and the body moves through a sort of, anxiety, right? And so, again, if an event of a loud sound, an image, then the body moves through and goes back into that space of panic. Okay. This is also, accidents, car accidents that can also create this post-traumatic stress disorder. And so the final anxiety here is the social phobia. Okay, this is your social anxiety disorder, right? So this is going out into public spaces, having to eat or drink in a public space, or give a lecture, or speaking in large crowds. Okay. So it's an overwhelming anxiety and excessive self-consciousness of, those everyday situations, right? So maybe this looks like someone, really, I'm thinking of, heart palpitations, sweating, maybe fidgeting, moving the hands, tapping the leg, tapping, hands tapping on the, maybe the thigh, right? And so this is it's a phobia, like I stated, speaking in large crowds or having to give a lecture. I really think about this. This one really moves me because I remember in college and high school and college, and so I feel more so in high school when I used to get really disappointed when I kind of tease because I'm like I was so in tune, because I was so frustrated when I would see teachers embarrass children. High school, you're still a child, and so you're a teen, and it would really upset me when they would make someone come up to the front of the room, and that you can really see a child's or the teen's distress, their anxiety, their fear of being embarrassed or made fun of, or just being in a position that didn't feel comfortable. And it really irritated me, just the detachment for the adults, or I hate to I dislike having to say this, but kind of that satisfaction of poking fun and making someone come up to the front of the room when they really felt out of their body and just made fun of. So so I just think about this when not having the compassion to see when someone is in distress, or to see when someone is really, I think it's a difference when you can go up to the front of the classroom. You can really just see someone oh, I'm not really sure of the answer, but they don't mind going up to the front of the room and leading in that way. But there are just really some teens and kids that you can really see where it really throws their whole body out of alignment, and it really shatters them. That feeling sticks with them throughout the rest of the day. It can really be, life-changing. And so, just kind of having that disconnect, I just have so much compassion, for the individual. And it, I think as a teacher, it is your responsibility to see when someone is in complete discomfort, and so not to force them in those situations. So that's just my take. I know I just wanted to share that, just a little piece that I noticed that. And so, and I guess that's why I'm here now doing this work. So, we'll move on into this quote and what I heard. I really wish I can think of the therapist's name. I had the opportunity to attend a live conference, a trauma conference, and one of the therapists mentioned is that anxiety is a stress response, right? So anxiety is a stress response in your body, not in the mind. What I thought was very interesting, because I always think as above, so below, and I think, the mind is, it's a very, very powerful muscle and tool, and and tissue is made up all of the tissue and fat that the brain is, and so I just really thought in my mind, I pretty much as above, so below, and that the mind is, moves what happens in the body. Like I think an example was if we think about, our favorite food, and we think about the smell, the texture, so for example, if we're thinking of pizza, that's the first thing that comes to mind right now. Maybe it's time for breakfast. When we think of pizza, we think of the oregano, the garlic, the olive oil, the cheese, vegan cheese, that is, and the gluten-free crust, that is. You're probably saying, oh no, you're making this pizza all wrong now. But when we think of that, we begin, our palate. I believe Alex Howard, he's the therapist that talks about that, is like the mouth we begin to water. The mouth begins to water because we're thinking about our favorite food. Probably you not so much now that I mentioned gluten-free pizza and gluten-free crust and vegan cheese. But I promise it's good. Add some sauteed mushrooms and some basil. Oh my gosh. So yeah, but according to, I wish I had her name. I do apologize, but she says anxiety is a stress response in the body and not the mind. And so we'll take a look at the three pillars. And before we do that, I want to give you a little treat. I mentioned that this episode is a surprise for Mental Health Awareness Month, and with that, I want to shout out our very special sponsors of this particular session, and that is Magic Mind. So if you've been following me on social media, on Instagram, that's the only social platform that I'm on. And so if you are following my Instagram stories, you may have seen me photo in my morning practice. I have been not only journaling and having my lovely lattes and smoothies, but I've also been adding a 2-ounce beautiful drink that is of Magic Mind, and there are amazing ingredients that I love. You all know that I absolutely love tea, and if you haven't, this is your first time listening, welcome. And tea is my thing. That is my love language. And so matcha is one of the key ingredients in this lovely 2-ounce elixir, and that again, of course, is Magic Mind. And the founder, James, he created this, James Rochea, he created this beautiful drink. And so in this episode, we're sitting here and we're talking about anxiety, and I decided I've been wanting to add something into my morning practice. And so this 2-ounce elixir not only has matcha, but it has my favorite ingredient, which is ashwagandha. I love some good old ashwagandha, and ashwagandha supports, the stress response, the anxiety response in the body, right? So if you're listening in on this episode, this session, and you're saying, whoa, I do need to check in on my anxiety, and I need to check in on, my stress levels and the things around me. But if you have a morning practice and you're looking to, create a morning ritual, then I highly recommend adding this amazing magic mind to your practice. I recently was experiencing some anxiety myself, and so I decided to take this drink. I love that it's convenient. It's a small little 2-ounce bottle. You don't have to replace it with you don't have to replace like your smoothie or your latte if that's something that you're just used to. You can just add it in, right? So, just toss it in your bag. I was heading to the studio to teach, and it was just a day where I was just like, gosh, I'm not feeling balanced, right? And I'm not feeling, this space of harmony. And so I decided to add this amazing drink. And so just toss it in my bag and, just sip it on the way there. Just take this quick little shot. It has a lovely image on the bottle that I love so much. I love the colors. It says, "Do more, stress less." I love that. So it comes in a beautiful box of many of these tiny elixirs, this tiny drink. And so you can purchase a big box. You can purchase a big box and you can subscribe. And with this amazing gift, I want to gift you for Mental Health Awareness Month. I want to gift you the code, right? So you can head over to magicmind.co /NMT. So that's N for no, M for more, T like trauma. So that's magicmind.co /NMT. And to get 20, ooh, what a gift. Yeah, 20% off. You can use my code. That's NMT. So that's no more trauma. So NMT, the number 2 and the number 0. So again, Magic Mind. So magic, MAGIC, mood, MOOD, or excuse me, mind, Magic Mind. So MAGICMIND.co /NMT. And again, you can use my code NMT20 to get 20% off. So yeah, I think this would be definitely something that you would want to add into your practice and, really allow yourself to have the harmonious morning practice and really to get rid of those, feelings of, stress and anxiety, and just see how that keeps you balanced throughout your day. So thank you so much, Magic Mind, for sponsoring this session. And so back to our current session. So we'll talk about the 3 pillars. And so what happens in the body is in the lower level is we experience the controlled muscles, right? So the chest, the hands, we're bouncing our legs, or maybe tapping our toes, on the ground. Whenever we start to feel this space of panic or anxiety, right? So this can, also, this space of anxiety can also tighten the chest, and we notice that the breath starts to become elevated, right? Or we're not breathing like we normally would. And so this is a great opportunity to see if you can reframe, right? Reframe the mind and transition those thoughts into maybe healthier thoughts, right? Separating what is fact and fiction of the excessive thoughts that are coming up, and see if you can start to come into the body for a space of meditation, okay? And so the mid-level, right? So this is when, that anxiety starts to really take over, right? We're no longer able to feel in control, right? And so this is where the muscles begin to experience something like burping or We may experience, really intense tummy upset, or like, irritable bowel or nausea, or what may feels like muscle cramps in the gut. When it starts to become chronic is when we begin to, someone may experience hallucinations, paranoia, or ringing in the ears and distorted vision. Okay, so this can really take them away from the present moment. This isn't the, what was stated. This isn't the part where you would want to do a meditation when you're so far into that panic, right? That high arousal of stress. This is what I've learned is where you want to, maybe come into a plank, to bring equilibrium to the brain and to the vision, right, and to the body. So you don't have to, you don't have to physically try that, in that moment, but really just, I want to paint a picture of what the chronic level of an experience of anxiety looks like. Okay. But if you are someone who, right into your space of fear or intense worry, you try to control it by breathing techniques. When you're in this state, or you may observe or witness someone in this state and try to bring them back to equilibrium or body homeostasis, then they're so far deep into the panic that breathing, this, allowing them to come into this space, it may be a little challenging. I won't say that it's impossible, but it may take a little bit more work and time and effort. Okay. So now that we know what the body looks like in that space, then what I want to talk about now is now that we know what it looks like, we know what these different styles of anxiety disorders are. How on earth can I decrease? How can I decrease this experience of anxiety? Right? I've been diagnosed, or this has been consistent in my life, or I am trying to transition into a space of harmony. What are the things that I may possibly have in my life that I need to remove to decrease, right? Decrease this constant state of fear or anxiety. Okay. So the first thing is the media. So the media, whether it's social or the news, this is something that you may want to, if you have a difficulty time eliminating it altogether. I know for me, I'm gonna be completely honest. I do not watch the news. I do not watch it. And to be quite honest, I don't even own a television. So, but, we have alternative ways to, have access to the news, whether it be on our phone, and, our tablets, our computers, and, whether we, go to the network site itself, or we go to YouTube, or again, social media. It's, once you know what it is that is causing illness, right, you have the choice to eliminate that, or to reduce the tongue tied there, the consumption, right? How much am I consuming of this information? So just making sure that you're monitoring your time. Just recently, I experienced my very own anxiety, panic, I saw something that stimulated an emotion, and next thing you know, I allowed, and I'm just be honest, I allowed the thing that I saw to really impact my day, right? And so, I was met with tears. I was, my stomach was, turning, and, I was frustrated, and I experienced, these ruminating thoughts. And I wasn't in the present moment, and I really allowed this thing to impact and control my day. I was no longer in control, and I had given it all my power. And so I had to really, the next day, unfortunately, right? But that's life. It happens. We're all human. We're giving ourselves grace. And so, I really had to say, okay, what can you do differently? Tanya, what can you do differently? Well, how about now is, I unfollow anything that I need to unfollow, and I need to create a time, right? A time limit. How much of this information am I going to consume if this is the information that I choose to, follow, or be a fan of or witness, whatever, right? So think about the time that you are contributing to the media. If that's something where it's like, oh no, I'm not giving up the news, and that's perfectly okay. Some individuals need to be informed. And so if you choose to be informed, then how much time are you going to allow yourself to be committed to this information, right? And so that's the news. Like I said, the news in the social, whatever social platforms that you choose to subscribe to. So giving yourself, an allotted time, making sure that you're not spending half the day with it, and it's taking you away from family, friends, and having, excuse me, I had something in my eye if you're watching me here on YouTube. So yes, if you're just joining, I'll just say that really quickly here. You can see me live, the recorded sessions on YouTube, and you can also, if you're on the go, you can listen Apple or SoundCloud. That's where you'll find my in podcast. So anyway, the next thing is lack of sleep. So rest is very important, especially if you know that you do experience challenges with anxiety disorder, any one of those that we mentioned earlier. Rest is a priority. It is protecting your mind. It is, we replenish and restore in our sleep. And so making sure that you're giving yourself that rest, right? So that can reduce any experiences of anxiety, especially if you were diagnosed, say, with, OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, and it's coupled with, what is that, ADHD. And so sleep is very important, right? So it's important for all of us. So just being realistic of the time that you need, whether it's 4 hours, 10 hours, whatever it is, just making sure that you are getting the necessary rest. The next one is diet, right? So I mentioned the beautiful elixir by Magic Mind, right? And, are the ingredients that you put in your body conducive to your mental health? That's just, an honest question, right? And so not to say that you can't enjoy the pizza that we talked about, right? The healthy, the gluten-free with the vegan cheese. I know you're like, what? So yeah. So, it's about balance, right? And so now if you're just living off this pizza, then, that's not going to be, supportive of your mental health. But, making sure that you are incorporating it with, the greens and the beautiful fruits and textures and color, um, you know, um, that can support your mind, right, and your body, and that's giving you the energy that you need for sure. And so the next one is clutter, right? Removing clutter. So if you haven't listened to the episode Trauma and Feng Shui, highly recommend that episode. That I have to say that must be a very popular episode right now, and it is still spring. So if you're spring cleaning, you can definitely go back and listen to that episode. Yeah, I had a lot of fun with that one, with that session. So yeah, making sure clutter is out of the way, that can definitely increase anxiety. I know, post my divorce, I remember my anxiety was, through the roof. And so, I was having those episodes quite often. And in that transition of, that separation, I started practicing minimalism, and I was needing to constantly purge and declutter and keep things out of the way, and keep it clear. So that definitely kept me balanced. I could find things easily, right? So clutter is really important. I can't say that enough. Um, Clutter can really, especially even at your desk, if you're constantly working at the desk, and ensure that you're not, you don't have tons of things that can keep you distracted, right? The next is, oh, yeah, well, that's technically the last one, but I think I wrote social media down twice. That means, like, really make sure that you are being mindful of your media intake. I can't say that enough, because if you're like me, you don't own a television. And so, I do hop on YouTube, I do hop on, Instagram, and all of those things, and it can really take up so much of I must admit, it can take up my time, if I'm posting, these sessions as well as, other mental health content, or yoga related or yoga therapy content. So, whew. Now, the homework. You have all of the information. We talked about the things that can reduce anxiety. We talked about the pillars and the biological aspect of how anxiety can impact the body. And we talked about the different anxiety disorders, right? So now you have homework. We also, introduced the beautiful sponsor of this today's session, but for mental health awareness, I think it's important in this homework to really keep a dialogue, right? And to take inventory and log any experiences, right? So, if you notice that your anxiety is increasing, start to log what is happening around you, right? What are the conversations that you're having? What are you listening to? What are you engaging in? What does your diet look like, right? What does your sleep patterns look like? And so this can really support you in really honing in on what are the things that need to be eliminated, right? To really create this space of balance and harmony within your mind and your body, right? And so I'd like to leave you with two quotes that I found that I just love in terms of, anxiety. And so, again, 40 million people in the U.S. alone. And so, and I just think about these quotes and how they can be, a little helpful. So I have two quotes, and the first one is by Charles Spurgeon. And it says, anxiety does not empty tomorrow of its sorrows, but only empty today of its strength. Ooh, I thought that was really moving, right? Because if you get up and you start your day with affirmations, and I know one of mine is, you are enough and you are strong. But sometimes when anxiety takes over, we don't feel strong, right? I talked about the moment that I experienced anxiety looking at, finding something that kind of stimulated me. And in that, that day, I didn't feel strong at all. And it did empty out, the day of my strength, right? I had to start anew the next day. And sometimes that's okay, but just as a reminder, it doesn't empty tomorrow. Sometimes we're ahead, right? And that's definitely something that I struggle with is I'm constantly thinking about what's happening ahead of me, right? And so it doesn't empty tomorrow of its sorrow, but it does empty that present moment of the strength. So I have another quote by David Mamet. I apologize if I'm saying that incorrectly, but this one's on the lighter side, and I really like this one. So it says, "We must have pie. Oh yes, we must have pie. Stress cannot exist in the presence of pie." And if you're a foodie like me, or if you just love pie, a good slice of pumpkin pie, vegan pie that is, hello. Um, no offense to anyone who doesn't practice a vegan diet, but a good slice of vegan pumpkin pie or apple pie, woo, oh yeah. Then stress and anxiety cannot exist. So have yourself a slice of pie. Oh my gosh, I love it so much. Thank you so much for joining me again in this session, this episode here on SoundCloud, YouTube, or Apple. I welcome you back. You are now my family, my friend. Feel free to like this episode or leave a comment or have a conversation with me. I'd love to, get to know you distantly or however that works, however we do this social thing, right? Yes, feel free. And if you're here in the state of Arizona, you can join me on the mat, right? In the yoga studio. Yeah. And so I ask that you live abundantly, love your authenticity, and radiate organic happiness. Inhale. Exhale. Most importantly, live a life of no more trauma. Namaste, trauma free. Woo! I will see you back. It was so good to have you here. And I'll see you again soon. Bye.